guys, so the gardens are starting to look pretty amazing for fall. I got all of my container fall plantings done, and I want to show you guys some of the beds. We're not totally full on fall here yet, but as you can see, the leaves are starting to change and the colors of the garden are starting to change, and I've got a lot of fall blooms, so we got a lot of ground to cover. And I also want to show you these super cool raised garden beds that are self-watering. They're in the backyard, and we'll get to them a bit later in the video. So the garden is really showing signs that it's winding down. Some of the plants are, starting to dry out, brown out, get that powdery mildew, but the color is still here. So let's talk about some of these plants, the foliage color, and what's blooming today. So the dahlias that I bought in spring from the nursery just to tuck in along the front border look really pretty right now. They're really gorgeous, and they have this beautiful color, little more tropical looking in summer, but now it's really starting to pick up more of the fall hues and deepen a bit more. Really loving these. I do need to get out here and deadhead, so just ignore those. But my balloon flower is starting to get some yellow foliage. So as this changes, I already cut the seed heads off. I was kind of done with the way those look. They're all flopping over. But the plant itself right now is going to change to like a brilliant yellow. So even though it won't get blooms anymore, I'll get this bright yellow color as fall progresses. I did plant some fall mums, some celosia. What else do I have in here? I have a couple little guys of kale. They really didn't have the larger varieties at the nursery. I would have preferred larger ones for my landscape, but I just made do with what was available. This little garden guy is a scarecrow made from a shovel and like rebar and stuff. I found him in Vermont. I thought he was kind of cool, so he's gonna hang out in my garden for a little while. So I did tuck in some fall mums, a couple pumpkins. I don't plant my mums until a bit later into fall because they just don't last that long. And they're really not meant to be a long blooming perennial. So I just put them in. And I know for some people they come back, and I've had them return too, but I put them in more as an ornamental annual in fall, and that's it. So because they only last about 6 weeks or so, I tend to plant them closer to October. So some of my summer Calabroca and other plants are still doing well, so I kept those in. My Sedum Autumn Joy looks beautiful right now. It's really getting that nice deep color. Isn't that pretty? Especially with the leaves falling on them. I even got another bloom of salvia. Look at that. Got some more balloon flower here. No flower, but just the change in foliage I find really striking. And then this is kind of what's left of my Queen Lime Orange zinnias. As you can see, they're pretty much done. I mean, you can't even use these blooms. So these are going to be coming out of the garden soon. I've got one lone flower of summerific hibiscus. Isn't it beautiful? I love these flowers. And I really appreciate the foliage as well. The shape of the leaves is beautiful, but I also love the different colors between the greens, the reds, and the purples. Really, really striking plant. So if you don't have summerific hibiscus in your garden, I strongly suggest it. It's a great late summer, fall garden flower. My roses, they're pretty much done. They set off their last set of blooms not too long ago. I don't even think there's any blooms left on them. And then I've got, I think this is Candy Girl mix. I'm gonna have to look it up. But this is the end of these zinnias as well. I grew so many of them from seed, and I just like stuffed them in wherever I could, and this was one of those places. I really liked how they looked, and the plants are really pretty, but you know, they're almost done for the season. And then I've got my fall containers. Did a whole blog about this. I'll link them in the description below where I have the recipes, but just to generally tell you what's in them, I've got some millet, celosia, mums, little boo pumpkins, pansies, and some kale. And then if we're gonna move along the border, I love my asters. Oh, they're so beautiful, aren't they? I love that color. And I really love the color with my Autumn Joy, Sedum Autumn Joy, and those dahlias. And I picked the mums and the celosia because I kind of wanted to add a little more of that fall color. That's so pretty. Love the combination. And I also tucked in a couple of winter pansies. Planting them in fall is a great time as opposed to planting them in spring because they love the cooler temps, and if you leave them in the ground, they will bounce back in spring. Oklahoma ivory here, zinnias, they've seen better days. They're almost done. As you can see, again, some diseased foliage. So these are going to be coming out soon. Some more roses. I got some arborvitae back there. This is my Hydrangea paniculata. It's beautiful. I love it. I really appreciate the color, that color in the blooms. I used to have barberry around this whole hydrangea, and we just took them out this year, so I haven't planted anything there yet. And in spring I did put some cosmos and a couple other things there, but they're out now because they're done. So I'm actually thinking about planting something else there. Do you guys have any suggestions? I was thinking something like a small shrub, but I don't know. I may just kind of go with perennials. So still thinking about it. Over here, we've got Oklahoma salmon. This was a really, really pretty zinnia, and the flowers are really big. Beautiful in arrangements, love it. Still going, but definitely on its way out. One of my favorites for the fall garden is the oak leaf hydrangea. Those leaves turn a brilliant crimson color in fall, and you just can't beat it. It's beautiful. I love the leaves. I oftentimes I'll take the leaves off just before a dinner party and add them to the table. If you do it too soon, they'll dry out, but they're just beautiful. And then these are my cranesbill. They love this spot. I actually got these from a friend a long time ago, and they just have taken over this area. But look at the color the foliage adds. So even though they're not blooming, it turns like a bright yellow, and it's just so pretty. So my Joe Pye, I think, has seen better days. It's completely fallen over. This is gonna get cut back soon. The ferns over here are almost done, but even though they're browning out, that drying, deceased texture adds a lot of color to the border, even though the plant is starting to die back. I really appreciate the change in the seasons, and it's one of the reasons why I want to continue living in a 4-season climate, because I just really appreciate how nature changes from season to season. And then back there I got a rhododendron. I used to have a Japanese maple here, but it didn't make it through Superstorm Sandy, and somehow this other maple grew in its place. I have no idea what variety it is. Excuse me. I have no idea what variety it is, but it just kind of popped up in its place, and I just kind of let it go. So this is the well garden, aptly named because we had to drill a new well here when we added a second story onto our home about 16 years ago. Originally, this garden was a mishmash of plants just to cover the well equipment, but over the years, I've sort of honed it, added plants that I wanted to include in my landscape, and I'll talk about a few of them here that look great in fall. So we've got that beautiful zebra grass. It's got its gorgeous fronds, And I love that color on those leaves. But it looks really striking with my smoke tree foliage. Foliage gets me every time, but it's gonna start changing color, as you can see. My tall phlox has seen better days. As you can see, lots of powdery mildew. This is gonna get cut back fairly soon. My limelight hydrangea looks gorgeous, doing its thing. Looks like I'm gonna need to cut some blooms to dry them inside. Bennery's giant wine zinnia, still going strong. Kind of hard to believe, but it's still going. And I really love it with my limelight hydrangea. I had just tucked it in here because I had no room for it. And I love how it's kind of flopping in and mixing with the hydrangeas. Isn't that so pretty? Tucked in some purple pansies and some mums. But my favorite in this garden is beautyberry. Isn't that so pretty? The flowers on it are pretty insignificant in summer, but it gets this graceful arching habit, grows to be about 4 by 6. But the real stunner is in fall when it gets this beautiful color in the foliage. And I mean, what do you think of these berries? Aren't they amazing? I did keep the marigolds and the euphorbia in the garden. I love the way it looks, and it's one of the reasons why I say in spring when you're buying your annuals, think about what they're going to look like in fall, because you'll save some money not having to replace that spring summer for fall color. So this bright foliage plant is Oreganum, Drops of Jupiter by Proven Winners. And it's beautiful. I love the foliage. I just planted this in spring. And then I've got some more Oklahoma ivory zinnias and a couple of David Austin roses. They're pretty much done blooming. I did just have one. And this one's Charlotte. Isn't that beautiful? I've actually got a whole blog post on all of the roses in my gardens. I'll link that in the description below so you can check it out. So when we first moved here, the mailbox garden basically consisted of just the clematis, which is Jacmani clematis. It's not blooming right now, but it does cover my mailbox. Over the years, I tucked in some other plants. I do have a few perennials in here like Sedum Autumn Joy. Isn't that beautiful? Gosh, I love that color. But I mainly tuck in annuals here. So I've got, you know, some ornamental kale, my pansies, and some mums. And then I have Bennery Giant Wine here. Tucked a few of those in. I kept some of my summer annuals here that are still looking pretty good. My petunias, my marigolds. And I just love. I mean, doesn't that look so pretty? I'll put the variety here on the screen. I have it. I'm just drawing a blank. But I just love how it billows through the garden. It's a great plant to put in containers, but it's also great in the landscape because it just looks amazing. And then on the other side of the driveway, I've got Bennery's Giant Wine again, Oklahoma Ivory, my Sedum Autumn Joy. This is actually the mother plant that I dug up and divided and planted all over my yard. This has been here for, let's see, we moved here in '98, so what's that, 23 years? It's been here for at least 23 years. They probably planted it before, the people before me. Then we've got my asters, and again, I kept those marigolds in because they look pretty autumnal, don't they? Then I've got some bacopa here that still looked pretty good, so I kept that. I love that along a border or trailing out of a container. So when you walk in my backyard, to the left, there's a walkway. got firewood over there, and that takes you up to the upper deck. I have my berry gardens to the left, and to the right is what we call the fire pit and shed garden. This has been a work in progress the last few years, and I'm really happy with how far it's come. So my hostas have obviously seen better days, attacked by slugs, even though I've been treating them, but I haven't treated them in a little while because, you know, season's over. Solomon seal back there, I love to use them in flower arrangements. It's so pretty. I'll share a few here on the screen so you can see a few of what they look like. I've got a hydrangea back there that never bloomed until this year. Isn't that amazing? I mean, it's probably been there for like the longest time. And it finally bloomed. Kind of crazy, right? I've got a dwarf Alberata spruce back there, variegated dogwood, variegated leucotho, tricolor leucotho. Got a beautiful heuchera. Tucked in some fall plants here. Mums, pansies, and a couple pumpkins. Got my mugo pine, sedum autumn joy, one of my ornamental grasses. Got a holly back, two hollies back here, a male and a female. And this is the first year I've gotten that many berries, so pretty happy about that. So I am really loving this planter. It's got some celosia, some hibiscus, and some curcuma gingers. I've never grown curcuma ginger before, but aren't those flowers kind of cool? Really want to dig it out, repot it, and bring it indoors so I can hopefully keep it going until next year. In this garden, I've got several dahlias. I've got Dahlia Tropical. I've talked about them in several videos, and I'm just gonna link that video here up in a little card if you want to click over to it. But so many dahlias, and I've just been cutting them like crazy. It's been amazing. In the garden here, I had a bunch of cut flowers that I grew from seed, but they are all really done. So here's a close-up of one of my window boxes. I love these window boxes. They're from H. Potter Marketplace, and they're beautiful. They're beautiful copper with lots of pretty details, and they look really great on my shed. So what I planted this one with is some mums, some celosia, some sedge. Some pansies are tucked in there. I've got some ornamental kale, a couple pumpkins, lots of falling leaves, and that's it. As we move through the backyard, this is really becoming overcrowded. I tucked in a bunch of my seedlings I had no room for, and a lot of the plants got bigger, so I've really got to clean this bed out and do it justice. But I'll just tell you what's here. I've got some horseradish, and if you ever decide to grow horseradish, it is invasive. I do try to keep it in check. I got to dig that one out, but it's fun to grow. I love the foliage, and you can dig up the root and get horseradish. I've got a couple zinnias still hanging out in there. This is my reblooming lilac. It's not blooming right now, but then I've got my sedum autumn joy. And this Joe Pye is just done. The rain has really done a number on these guys. I did tuck in some fall flowers just to get some color out here. And then on the other side here is really where all my raspberries are. Can't really see them because the leaves are pretty much all fallen off. My zinnias have seen better days. I've got some nasturtiums. And my roses are not blooming anymore. Got my hoses out still. I tucked in a few extra zinnias here too. They're done. I'm going to pull those out as well. And then I've got my ever blooming endless summer hydrangeas. This is the hydrangea where I cut those blooms from to make that wreath. I'll tag that in the description below in case you want to make a hydrangea wreath. They're really beautiful, they're really fun, and they look really pretty in fall decor. Look, rain knocking down limbs. And then this side of the border of the backyard, this actually was originally planted to conceal septic bed, which I have here. And when we did our addition 16 years ago, we had to completely redo the septic. So we wanted a flat area where we could put play equipment for our kids. So in order to do that, they had to do a bit of a drop off. So instead of looking at a drop off that made no sense, I planted a garden. So I've got a bunch of hostas in here, another tricolor variegated leucotho, this gorgeous hellebore. I wish I knew the variety. My friend gave it to me so many years ago, but I just love that texture with the rest of the foliage of the hostas. It just looks so pretty. And then I've got a beautiful butterfly bush. Love the butterfly bush. So did the butterflies, and it's still blooming. I've got a variegated willow back there. This Joe Pye is like totally done. Couple more hostas tucked in here. I've got a Wigela, I'm not really sure how to say that. I probably say it wrong. And then I've got these plume poppies. Again, a friend of mine gave these to me. They're super cool. They do take over and take up a lot of room. So if you grow plume poppies, give them a lot of space because they like to naturalize. This is a viburnum, and it's got these lovely berries on them right now. I'm loving that. And then this is the burning bush. I have 3 of them. They're from the front yard. When we did the addition, we removed them from the front landscaping because, I mean, they were growing ridiculous and it was very hard to maintain there. So I moved them back here, and I love the change in foliage color. As you can see, it's already starting to change, and it will eventually turn like a crimson red. It's beautiful. It's gorgeous. And then as we move along, I've got a rose of Sharon. I think it's called white chiffon. I'll have to look it up. It's not blooming anymore. And then I've got a Carapteris and snowball viburnum. We have woods in the back of our house. Some hostas. I tucked in a couple fall plantings. And then I did a couple whiskey barrels. Love the whiskey barrels. They're so cool. I'll add a link in the description below for them because they are really, really awesome and really fun to plant. And then over here, I've got an arbor that my husband built that leads to the back where I have my compost bin and a little potting bench that he made. And then we're back here at the shed. So one of the things that I've been meaning to share with you guys are these amazing self-watering raised garden beds from Gardener Supply. Now, I don't know if you're familiar with them, but I love the industrial farmhouse kind of look, the industrial feel of these planters. And even though my gardens are a little bit more cottage, I wanted to do something a little bit different. And I really love the corrugated metal on these. And as a bonus, they have these self-watering reservoirs that sit at the bottom underneath the soil and water the plants from below. I grew tons of tomatoes this year. I mean, this is just the tail end of that season. I grew, as you can see, a lot of peppers. This is actually the most peppers I've ever grown. I had lots of herbs and lettuce, and it was just a really great growing season for my vegetable garden because I used to actually have the vegetable garden over there in that bed, and new this year were these self-watering raised beds. And that's it, you guys. Thanks for coming over and touring the gardens with me today. Really appreciate you dropping by. I'll see you in the next video. I'm Stacy from Bricks and Blooms. Enjoy a beautiful day.